This is This Week in Perspective with me, Adam Simbeya. A week ago, Tanzania journalists and related stakeholders marked the World Press Freedom Day in Mwanza, which was preceded by seminars on various related issues of press and media freedom. There are many questions that journalists and stakeholders, as well as the general public, are constantly asking about press freedom in Tanzania. And today, my whole panel of journalists here, my whole journalist panel here, will try to answer some of these questions. So, with me to try and answer these questions today, on my right is Salim Said Salim, a veteran journalist, very well known in journalism circles. Next was supposed to be Dr. Ayub Lioba, Director General of Tanzania Broadcast Corporation. For some reasons, he's a bit late, but if he joins us, we'll welcome him as well. He will be sitting there. Then on my left, another veteran journalist, Uli Mambulukutu, former managing editor of the Daily News, Sunday News, and the related newspapers. Then, of course, went to Foreign Affairs and to the UN system, now retired. Last but not least, Said Amea, a young, I hope you accept that, a young journalist. I wouldn't call him veteran, but experienced journalist. He was once press secretary, I suppose, of the then vice president of Tanzania, Dr. Shein, Mohammed Shein. Now with Maelezo, that's the Department of Information Services in Dar es Salaam. So, gentlemen, welcome to the program. Let us do justice, although you are three, to the subject matter. And as I said, when Dr. Yoba joins us, he will add to the efforts that you're going to do. So, I don't know who will be ready to set the ball rolling, but as usual, I normally go to old and veteran journalists to start. I know Uli is shaking his head, but I'll start with Salim.
But he was my boss.
Yes, I know. Let's start with the very first question. Oh dear, did I get my questions right? Okay. So let's start with this question of press freedom, press and media freedom. Salim, what is the status of press and media freedom in Tanzania today?
Well, in my opinion, it depends on how you look at it, whether you look at it from the left or you look at it from the right.
Or you look from the center.
Yeah, exactly. In the good old days, or the bad old days, when I used to work with the Daily News, with Uli as my boss as the managing editor,
yes,
or even before that when we were before nationalization, I can see a lot of difference. But if I have to be honest to myself,
yes,
to this table,
yes,
and to fellow Tanzanians,
yes,
I feel that we were more free under the one-party system during the reign of Mwalimu Nyerere. And I've got a lot of reasons to say that. One, at no given time, we used to get instructions from the State House. Only what we used to get, and Oli knows he's a big boss, that when you say, I read what you're doing, okay, keep on going on. Nothing more, nothing less. Only once, in the whole time I've been in the Daily News, until I left in 1984, we got only one article from the State House, written by Mwalimu himself. Who is the fish in the pond? And with a note asking for an apology that as an editor-in-chief of the Daily News, he is asking the managing editor of the Daily News to use it.
okay,
And in it saying, if you think that there has to be some editing, please go ahead
and do it.
One. Two, We used to criticize ministries very strongly, and we were proud that, though proud in court,
And were you objective with your criticism?
objective criticism, that it led to some ministers being forced to resign for being corrupt.
So the issue was corruption. You were reporting on corruption.
Exactly. One of it,
which Mwalimu, of course, had strongly.
One of it, only remembers, it was very painful one, but we had to do it because it involved some of our friends. It was Sugar Development Corporation, SUDECO.
Yes.
There was a lot of scandals at that time about people selling go-downs like their poultry huts. Then we uncovered it when Mwalimu said, enough is enough. What is in the Daily News? And those people have been forced to resign.
Okay, all right. So you had the freedom.
We had a lot of freedom. Yes. A lot of freedom.
Yeah, but how about today now? Because that's the topic of discussion.
Then there's another one incident. One Minister for Information came.
You don't name him.
I don't name
or
it.
you've forgotten it. Doesn't matter.
And he started what he called hammering sense in our empty heads. And we chased him around, telling him, you have no right to speak to us. You are not the editor-in-chief. We have the managing editor, Uli Mwamulukutu, and the chief editor is called Julius Kambarage Nyerere. Then we told him to read the blueprint.
Yes.
That Julius Kambarage Nyerere, the chief editor. He went to Mwalimu, and what we were told later, with confirmed reports, including Mwalimu himself, he asked him, did I ask you to do it? Don't I read these papers? Leave them alone.
Let them do their job.
Their job, you do your job as a Minister of Information, yours is my lezo, and not the Daily News.
Wow.
We used to have very strong letters page, edited by himself, the editor, and at times asking for our assistance. Very strong. We had something called Action Line, and people had to answer ministers. We had to go in 3 days' time, ministers or principal secretaries had to. Therefore, at those days, we were really free. And at no given time, I remember to have been told that watch it or shut up or don't do that. Or
Thank you, Salim. Uli, Salim keeps on referring to you as his boss, his managing director. I mean, I had a question later on to ask, how do you compare press freedom during Mwalimu's days and today? But I don't know whether he has jumped the gun, but in his own way of explaining what the status of freedom of the press today, he touched on those things and more or less answered that question. But I come back to you again. In your view, as a veteran journalist, what would you say on the status of press freedom today?
Well, picking up from where Salim had left off,
yes.
Of course, I'm not going to be too nostalgic. I can only say...
Because you're a diplomat.
I'm going to say at least the Tanzania media today
yes.
is alive and well.
Okay.
Quantitative.
Is alive and well.
Quantitative.
Okay.
There are constraints.
Yes.
There are many things. And that's what perhaps makes my colleague Salim revert back to the good old
days of Mwalimu, yes.
But then also, of course, that's where we have to be a bit cautious,
yes.
in a way, to look at issues in terms of the prevailing situations in different periods which we are examining here. Very right what Salim said, and as you refer to it, we'll find this question much later. What was the situation during Mwalimu's reign? I would say our media today is alive. In fact, I pity them and I also envy them.
Yes.
Because they are just too numerous newspapers. Yes. So I just wonder who reads what.
Oh, who reads which?
Yes, who reads which, who reads what, who picks the tea leaves where, etc., etc. On my part, I must confess I cherry pick.
What to read?
I've cultivated a habit where I've singled out certain papers which I like to read. Okay. Including my old one, which I must confess doesn't look as near as the old paper we used to have, but I'm only happy that it is still existing.
Yes.
To me, it is the mother of the media here, whether we like it or not.
Yes.
Some about.
Yes.
It was a measure at one point of the Nationalist,
Yes.
a party newspaper, and the Daily News, the colonial,
Tanganyika Standard.
the Tanganyika Standard, the colonial paper.
Yes.
And this mix produced something unheard of in this society. And the kind of journalists who came in from nationalists, they all, fortunately, they moved to the Daily News, to the Standard premises.
Yes.
So you can see how you marry the...
Different thoughts.
Because they used to be very competitive,
Yes.
and very envious of each other, and that made a most lively media operation in Tanzania in those days. So today I'm saying there is still progress. It is there, quantitatively. We have a lot of newspapers. In fact, TCRA, if I'm not wrong, talks about 100 plus what, radio stations? 120, yeah.
Said may tell us later, because
etc.
coming from the minors.
So this kind of play of ideas is extremely important. During the one-party state, of course, it was very important. I'm not going to go into details, that we had a vision, and the vision then was only as defined by the Ujamaa policy.
Yes.
And around that one, implementation, our role was to promote things of Ujamaa, encourage good neighborliness, and of course, those were the days of the
self-reliance and
and then the days of the liberation struggle, and the influence of the liberation movements based in Dar es Salaam was so crucial to the media then. We mixed very easily with people who ended up becoming presidents of their countries or ministers, very senior. So you can imagine the role the media was playing. And it was not as easy as it should have been. But I'm saying the presence of so much media, the opening up of the media environment in Tanzania is as encouraging as it is challenging. To me, it's an indication that the media, both print and electronic, is still most needed here. How do we improve the current situation? I think that is the subject of this debate and many other debates that may come.
Two follow-up questions on that, Uli. You said you cherry pick, you choose which papers to read because there are so many. Would you say whether having a mushrooming number of media houses, or newspaper, whatever, has an advantage or disadvantage? And does that disadvantage you to the extent that you have only decided to pick one or two?
Well, I cherry pick in the sense that there's just too much for me. And again, what kind of media are we talking about? Which makes the environment even more interesting. In the old days, the one-party system, so most of them were one policy, single policy kind of monoculture media orientation. But today you are talking of ownership, individual, political party orientation, even religious, etc., etc., etc. So that one, I mean, of every line you are talking about, there is a paper. And they more or less report the same thing. One of the challenges, what I am telling, why I cherry pick.
Yes.
Because really, if you are a serious reader of these papers, you can find more or less the same stuff is reported in the same media. Depends on how it is
reported differently.
But you can't miss a story. The story you read in one, you have read it in another one. If you want the emphasis, maybe this leans maybe towards...
How about the seriousness in what they write? I mean, as newspapers, do you take some of them to be serious, the others to be tabloid?
Definitely, some are very, very serious. But still, even those which, they are also light-hearted papers, which never used to exist in those days. They are so light that for people, for somebody of my age, I wouldn't read them, but you can see people crowd the newsstands are young people who like all these so-called Udaku papers,
Yes.
and they're there. So seriousness, yes, it depends. What is more interesting, we had here the other day, we discussed the media situation in Tanzania.
Yes.
We said it remains polarized, partisan, to quite an extent. Whether that is healthy or unhealthy is a matter of discussion.
But do you think that that indicates that there is freedom of press? The press is free.
There is relative freedom of the press.
Relative.
It could be freer.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Why? Because a lot of constraining aspects. If we want to go back to the old days,
Yes.
if you even go back to the most hated or so-called draconian 1976
Yes. Law.
press law. But, you know, somehow the elements of that law seem to be surfacing in one or another. Go through all those from Cyber X, Status X, to whatever you know it. You see those elements trying to create an environment.
Be more responsible.
But then we, the practitioners, have to talk to the government. We have to deal with them to say, okay, we have gone too far. The Constitution has this element. Maybe this could be better than that. And I think this process has gone on and on and on until we have arrived at the current
Media Services Act. Okay. Well, thank you very much, all the veteran journalists. Let me go to Said Yamea. With your experience and all this, you are close to this then Vice President Dr. Shane of the Union. You have done a lot in the media. Very simply, in your view, not those representing Miles or the government, do you think there's freedom of the press in Tanzania?
Yes, I do. As my colleagues said, these people are proud of their old good days.
Yes.
And when I joined journalism in 1994,
yes.
To date, I find there is a huge transformation in this sector. Media now, I think, is an industry by itself. It employs a lot of people. There are a lot of investment there, diversity in views and content, diversity in ownership. Those days when they talk about the only government or government newspapers, government radio, there was no TV. But today you have plenty of TVs. Maybe I think I'm told about 30 TV stations in Tanzania, about 80 radio stations, and almost they told me I was surprised because I was told about 430 newspapers and registered at Milezo now. So you can see how the environment is conducive for this sector to grow. Whether they say there are some challenges in it, of course, about how investment is, who owns what, because ownership also influences what is written in the papers.
Yes.
Or we talk about the polarization of this media. Those implication on the ownership. Different people own newspapers. Who own these newspapers? Who own this media?
They also have different interests.
Interests, of course. So those are issues when we take it. We can see those are issues we consider when we are assessing the freedom of press in Tanzania. Not only about the laws, because sometimes people they think about the law, how the relationship between the government and the media. That's always people when you talk about press freedom, people are always referring to relationship between government and the media. How the government behaves vis-a-vis the media.
How about how the media behaves vis-a-vis government?
It is not considered many. And if you go through these reports,
yes,
you go to Reporters Without Borders, you go to Media Freedom,
yes,
all the questions they're asking, and sometimes I'm worrying who these opinion makers, who are the type of opinion makers.
Yes,
you know, I'm surprised. So if you look at how, I want to say whether there is press freedom or not in Tanzania, to me, there is press freedom in Tanzania. Although by Freedom House, we are ranked with fairly free. There is no freedom, fairly free, and freedom. We are in between. To me, it's positive development for
would you compare then the current status in terms of press freedom with anybody else, maybe even the neighboring countries or even the SADC region? I mean, I don't know. I don't think you would have the data to substantiate that.
I can do that relatively because I'm living here, and I also nowadays the world is is just a global village, and you can access newspapers.
Yes.
I usually read newspaper in Europe, South Africa, Mail and Guardian there. You can just access newspaper like Nation, you can go on
the Washington Post,
or
the
so, of course, if you look at it will be discussed later on the World Press Freedom Index, even South Africa this time have gone down. And the issue was the issues of SABC, the policy in the ABC government has been interrupting the SBC board. There was a squabble there between the board membership and the boardship with the government and the SABC. Normally, NCB is more or less independent in South Africa. But now, some years ago, there was a scramble between the power struggle within the board of the SABC. And if you look at content-wise, we are far better in East Africa. We have all of these things. About the dailies, we have about 10 dailies in the door. As my old fellow here said, sometimes he fails what to read. But it gives you a lot of opinion. Even if they write something, the same thing, you go look for the style. Guardians are writing different from Daily News. Daily News writing from Citizen.
Yes.
Mwananchi writes differently from Uhuru, from Tanzania,
the Daily News writes differently from the Guardian.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Even the style and the language, you can see the difference. So sometimes you look at the content and the style. And sometimes even the people. If Said Salim writes something, I'll be able to read it instantly. Because
I've read so much about him.
Yes. And so much. So those are things which we have to look into it. Yes. But it's sufficient to say that I say Tanzania, we are far better in the press freedom.
So better than who, for example? You refer to South Africa?
No, some other neighbors.
Yes.
Some other. We are not perfectly, but we say with some other neighbors.
Yes.
And sometimes I'm questioning, as I said before, I'm questioning the criteria. Because I read extensively about the criteria to measure freedom of press.
Yes.
So that's what I'll tell you one thing, Mr. Said. In one of the reports last year, they say Zanzibar, they are delaying their news bulletin TV just to be censored by the government, which is not true. I was surprised. I was there 3 years ago. I was working there. We've never been interrupting the process. It's 7:15 news. So so that's why I say I'm questioning those opinion makers about this. All these, those who opine about the freedom, whether there is freedom or not.
With due respect, I used to be a board member of the Zanzibar Leo, and actually the first copy of the Zanzibar government newspaper, Nuru, was edited by me and handed over to President Salmin Amur. I have evidence of the interference in the previous government. In the previous government, there were 2 ministers actually writing stories themselves. And for your information, that was one of the reasons I asked to resign from the board of directors.
All right. With that. But yes. I'm saying last year, last report. Because I'm saying I was there for last 3 years. But
to be very honest,
yes.
As far as over the past 2 or 3 years in Zanzibar, I don't like talking good of people. I always like to criticize. But President Shein is doing
You also like to be criticized?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. He's doing fine and very tolerant. There's no doubt about it. And the testimony is that he has even told ministers more than twice. And once he called them at the Zanzibar House of Representatives with the press, telling them that the media, have a right to know each and everything which has a public interest. Okay. And personally, I can say that sometimes you ask him very, very bad questions, and he's tolerant and ready to answer. Even yesterday, when he came back from Djibouti.
Yes.
There were some very provocative questions asked to him, and he answered them very politely. But in capital letters, his assistants, actually, if there are presents or awards to be given, I think Zanzibar, for those who are not media friendly, there are some ministers who should get it in Zanzibar.
All right.
But because they saw big difference between the head of the Zanzibar president and some of his ministers. Okay. This man is very open, very friendly, transparent, but these people, they look at the ministries just like their family property.
All right, okay. Thank you for raising that issue. But Uli, you wanted to come in. Please, it's your chance.
I wanted to add to what Said was saying about where we get statistics and figures about anything about Tanzania.
Yes.
You see, it is very true. Foreign media, foreign interests have their own way of reporting the country.
Exactly.
So now, me as a Tanzanian,
yes,
do I have access to actual facts and information to counter this kind of thing? It's my role as a journalist. Also, I think the public want to know the truth. I want to go back to the old days we used to have. Again, this was the initiative of Mwalimu. There was so much bad press about Tanzania from every right and left especially during the Ujamaa process and all that.
Yes.
So all those writings, they used to get Mwalimu not only worked up, but sometimes he made them look laughable. So he asked the Standard, the Daily News,
yes,
why not republish these things, no matter what they say, just reprint them and see what the readers say. Would they comment on them? Would they do what? And that's the column we used to have, was what they say about us. And we found that one very, very useful. It was good for the country and good for our readers, because they took up issues, some for or some against. You know, we found it
more or less a debate, yeah?
Yeah, it was very healthy. Sure. So, and today, as I speak, I want to tell Said, because he's a young man. There was a time just before the breakup of the East African community.
Yes.
We were fully involved in the press war.
Yes.
The press war was mainly between Kenyan media and Tanzanian media. It went on for nonsense. Stop it. We had to stop it.
Because he was the chief.
Yeah, and you
chief
remember
editor,
those were
no,
because those were the days when you encourage it. Let's go on. Kenyans like Tanzania, Tanzanians like Kenya, but they're in a family of East Africa. There are debates which you must have in order to further the ideals of the East African community.
Yes.
We reached a point where we used to call Kenyan media Kenya the Nyang'au country,
yes.
and they called us men eating nothing society. But it was laughable, but it continued.
Yeah, let him finish. Yeah.
And that's how it works. As we speak right now, I wonder if the panelists have seen the current process of elections in Kenya.
Yes.
Reports are coming here where they associate our head of state with the politics of Kenya.
Yes.
Who is supporting who there, who is that? And if you read it, in fact, for me, I would have said, why don't we put it in public here and let's see how the people enjoy it. Because the way stories are written by some media there, whether they're influenced by the politics, by what. So what I'm saying, foreigners will always say something about our country. Sometimes in good, sometimes bad. I think we should be open and we should look at it. And then the authorities, or those responsible for informing the world, for helping to put the best foot forward of Tanzania without hiding anything, they should be more forthcoming, perhaps, than they've been doing. I mean, that's my argument.
You see,
yes, sir.
I just wanted to read about what they say about us. And frankly speaking, these people used really to attack Mwalimu. And
when you say these people, what do you mean?
the foreigners.
Okay. Yes.
And they used to write things which were very, very laughable. And they helped Tanzania, because I remember once he gave me a piece to go through it and put it in the page. It was saying that 90% or no, more than 3/4 of the members of the cabinet,
Mwalimu's cabinet,
are his family members and tribesmen. Then we started calculating. It was only Boke Monanka who came from Musoma.
Yes.
And Joseph Nyerere, his young brother, was the regional commissioner. Others came from Mwanza, they came from Tanga, from Lawi Sijaone, and others came from other places, others from Tabora. And see,
the Kasambalas from there.
Yeah. Where did they got these datas of 90%? It was very helpful for Tanzania. What I was trying to say that if you allow people to be very critical of you, even on points which, condemning you for not what you have done,
yes,
the public, Tanzanians are very intelligent. They can weigh it up, scale it up. But if you hide the truth and only allow yourself to be portrayed like Prophet Muhammad or Jesus Christ, then that is the problem. And I'm telling you about that thing, is that I still have evidence. You go to the Daily News. Sometimes we used to go for 2 weeks without Mwalimu's story on page 1 or his picture. But we used to deal issues. Sometimes during Eid Baraza, we used to have children playing there during Eid, and Mzee Kawawa or Mwalimu inside. Because Eid festival is for children. On Christmas Day, we don't put Mwalimu in going to church, or Abedi Mamani Karume during Eid festival as in Baraza. We put them inside. But on front page, we have children or elders, playing with people, and people used to enjoy it because people want to read about themselves. Stories of Mwalimu, honestly, they used not to be more than 5 or 6 in a month on front page inside. And that is what that particular minister complained. And Mwalimu told him, but I'm reading it. I haven't told you to go to talk about it. If you want it, Maelezo, you go and publish your own story, then you put me on front page every day. That's what Mwalimu said.
Okay.
Therefore, you could see how Mwalimu was very media friendly.
Yeah. Yeah. All what you're saying, Salim, is to try to project those good old days. The freedom of the press, those good old days, and what is currently the situation.
But on the other side of the coin,
yes,
don't forget that nowadays the media is also not responsible. Most of them very unethical.
Yeah,
you should not forget about that, because let us look at the tragedy which took place at Karatu.
Yes, in Arusha.
How a responsible media house display those pictures of the dead children. Honestly, in our days, we had some serious accidents like the one at Kisongo in Arusha in 1970,
yes,
where children were burnt to ashes, and Mwalimu came there. He spent 3 days in Arusha to join the bereaved and others.
Yes.
We didn't publish those stories. We just published people who are very sorry, but not the dead bodies. Ethically, that is irresponsible.
This in the print media or as well as in the electronic media?
Both. They were wrong to do that. It's unethical, unreligious, immoral.
So there's a question of ethics as well, because my next question was, I'm sure you can react, Salim has started. Do you think journalism profession lives up to its principles, ethics, and respect for the rule of law? Who do you want to start? Uli? Or?
Well, maybe as an old hand, yes. I mean, they are trying their best. But I seem to think there is something missing. That's perhaps what he was referring to. The way we train our journalists. Yes. I'm not going to go into training exactly.
Yes.
How do you get your journalists? Yes. It's not so much you having a degree or a PhD or anything. In fact, journalism to me does not necessarily feed on
qualification.
On qualified PhDs, professors, or degrees.
Yes.
In what you do there. And you don't have to be just a journalist to work for the newspaper. Going back to the old story, I hope today they are doing the same. I'm not too sure. When you first recruit staff to your newsroom, they become as cub reporters, no matter what level they are.
No matter what the basic education
what basic background they come. If they decided to be journalists or reporters, they must start from
the lowest
from
level.
the lowest rank and rise from the ranks. And most of the people Salim is talking about, including the expatriates we worked with, the leftovers of the old Tanganyika Standard, none of them had gone to university. If anything, they trained where?
On the newspaper.
Fleet Street. You have heard of Fleet Street?
Yeah, I passed
you
through there.
You trained in London.
Yes, I passed
BBC,
through that.
I think.
Yes.
You remember Haji Konde?
Yeah.
He never went to see university. He was one of the first-class professional. The Bob Roye Mahmoud.
Bob.
You know, only later he became a lawyer. All of us, we started by first becoming court reporters. I think we hinted that before we came here.
Yes.
You start as a court reporter, and you go with a senior person. And Bob Roye Mahmoud was more the most senior, who would make sure those young reporters, they come back, he mentors them all the way. You graduate from court reporting by not making silly mistakes. Because if you mess up with the courts, you're in trouble, or the newspaper is in trouble. From there, you also qualify to become parliamentary reporter. Then then after that, you know, seniority goes on. Some become news editors, some become features editors.
Some editors.
Yeah. I remember when we first started to bring in graduates. I happened to be one of them, but in fact, I was not even wanted when I came back from university. When the papers, the Daily News started to recruit, you know, open to recruit from Dar es Salaam University. We had some young people from the university who came there. They would say, you are not going to be sub-editing. You can't edit my story. Me, I'm a graduate, so don't do that. And most of these never survived. Or if they did, they've never made it very, very far. And those who tried, they tried that. So what I'm saying is that it's not enough to finish your college or university and think that you go to the newspaper because you can write very well, then you are a journalist. You have to go through the process and master the trade, and from there you advance. And this is the kind of thing which I think should be encouraged among our media people today. Yes. And I notice in the new press media, where they say, oh, the limit to employ of the diploma, fine, if you follow the profession right. But a diploma in education is more useful, or is equally as useful as a diploma in journalism. So they should have a variety. And I noticed one newspaper for which I worked very briefly, just as a part-time consultant, The Citizen. They have a doctor, medical doctor, who is reporting on health issues. And that guy is very good. He doesn't even call himself Dr. So-and-so. You must have seen him, his name. His name is Baguzi, I think, Buguzi or Baguzi. He's a medical doctor, but he decided he wants to become a journalist and a reporter, and they write very informed things like that.
Okay.
Ethics, Salim. Ethics. We go to
Even Saidi, remember, we used to have a lot of gatekeepers, minimum 3 before a story goes on print. Minimum 3. For a serious story, even 5. For example, when he was the editor, at no given time did he write an editorial without sending it to me and other colleagues to go through it. then we tell him this is wrong. But nowadays, the editor can make his comments and write an opinion, put it on the page. A news editor or even a reporter. Therefore, I think what the present media houses at present should review is the importance of gatekeeping, because some of the stories they publish actually are some of the newspapers, like The Citizen, I really admire them. Mwananchi.
You do?
Yes, now, I do.
On that point, if you do, let me, I'm sorry to bring this issue.
Yeah.
In your view, Salim, do you think this was responsible enough to write a story about Professor Palamagamba Kabudi? I mention his name because it's public domain.
Yeah.
Involved in this question of false certificate, when the facts were not true. You read this? You read this?
No, I don't.
The story itself.
What I'm saying is generally they're isolated cases, but they are trying. They are real. The Daily News, for example, is still a showcase for the Tanzanian media. Very, very responsible. Where there's a story about claim, allegation, they make it very clear. They don't make judgments.
They know the consequences.
Yeah. They make judgments.
They leave the judgment to the readers.
Yes, exactly. And I just wanted to give one simple comment about when you talk about press freedom in Tanzania. To me, there is press freedom.
There is press freedom.
Yeah, there is freedom.
You want to emphasize that?
Yeah,
yes.
but this question of banning newspapers, I hate it. Why? Because we've got courts of law. If you ever got complaint, go to the court. Otherwise, we should say that there shouldn't be a judiciary. Ministers should make decisions. Issues of Home Affairs, the Minister for Home Affairs. Issues of education, the minister should be a judge. Issues of health, the Minister for Health.
Okay.
One. Two, when I talk about ban, we have witnessed it in Muhimbili. Someone who was supposed to be operated
On the
head, they amputated the leg.
Instead.
They haven't closed the Muhimbili. Why, when there is a mistake in the newspaper, you ban the newspaper? Comparatively,
All right.
I think they are not doing fair.
All right. Okay. Yes, Said?
I agree with my colleagues here about ethics. You know, if you look at the day I was working in the newspapers those days, he said eloquently, Salim, that about 5 people before it goes to the press, to the printing. But nowadays, newsroom are in laxity. People have relaxed, totally relaxed. You can see one story have about 10, 15 mistakes, or either orthographic or language-wise or factual. Even simple, a common reader can ask a lot of questions and that question. But those days, you can go 10 times if that story is not complete. It has to be balanced. Everything. So one example, those days, if maybe Mwalimu was giving a press conference, the editor would be there, some senior reporters, 2, 3, and one editor will be there. You will be the one who is supposed to write the story. But other 3 will just see how you write this story to make sure that it's complete and factual. But these days, president maybe do a very big story, a big event, just one trainee is going there. He writes what he wants, just 3, 4, 5. All of many important facts are left out. Okay. You look at this, story and look at the event itself. Still,
all right. Okay.
Perhaps I should summarize.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not
nowadays,
yet.
on that one.
Yes.
Nowadays, there's no difference between the editor and the page maker. Sometimes a news reporter gives the story to a page maker without the knowledge of the editor. At those times, each and every story, we used to have how many table? No. You had one copy.
Yeah.
And a copy for the news editor. You remember? We used to have each story had to have 4 or 5 copies, which goes around. Then after the story has been edited, it goes to at least 2, 3 sub-editors. Everybody signs it, then it goes. Nowadays, reporter, page maker, some of the stories. I think we should go back to the old days.
Well, times is against us, my dear panelists. Let's come to the question of who needs who in terms of development issues and all these between the media and the government. Does the government need the media or vice versa?
Well, we are birds of different feathers, but we must flock together.
Must work together.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
We cannot separate go alone. Where the media is anti-government or the government is anti-media, there's always a lack of understanding within the society. After all, this country belongs to all of us.
Yes.
We have to work together.
All right.
We have no way out.
You've already touched on this because the difference between Zanzibar and Tanganyika mainland in terms of freedom of the press, you referred to the president of Zanzibar being more freedom oriented, where the second level is not. But let's jump on to the last question. Maybe we'll spend a few minutes here. So all what you have said, notwithstanding, Oli, Saidi, and you, Salim, towards the end, you have accepted that there is freedom of expression in this country, but we have to look at the media profession itself. Do they behave reasonably? Are they objective? Are they reporting with a sense of responsibility? As you agree, as much as I agree, that there's always, freedom has its limitation, isn't it? You can't have 100% freedom. So, in your view, of all what we've said, so what are the challenges facing the media in the country today? I'll start with you very quickly before we wind up.
Actually, some of the media houses are what we can say irresponsible. They forget that sometimes you have to do something to get a clarification. They are very sensational at times, and sometimes you regret that the way they put on stories. They are very, very unethical. We are too good in blaming the government.
Yes.
But the media itself is also irresponsible at times.
Who should blame the media?
Well,
the media itself blame itself?
What I'm saying
that
that
the wrongs?
Both houses needs some repairs.
All right. Okay. Udi, because we have a few minutes to wind up. Very quickly, what are the challenges, if any?
I think the challenge, we have gone through all the challenges.
Yes.
And me, I'm not, I don't think this panel wants to give up on the current professionals of journalists. They are doing a very good job, but they need to do a lot better through study and insisting on truth. And not, if Rioba is not here, but I was reading one of his dissertation. If you allow me, I'll tell you. Okay. I'll just a quick quote on. He talks about, well, his thesis of the whatever study he made. That a free, self-regulating media sector contributes positively to socio-economic and political development of a democratic country. Once you are there, responsibility rests with the professional journalists and the rest of the Tanzanians, be it in government, be it the voters, be it everybody. The onus is on them to ensure that this society operates on an even keel.
Another final challenge?
I'll just touch on the media personnel. I think they lack self-esteem and self-believing. It is very important that journalists themselves build their own self-esteem and self-believing, in the sense that they must be very presentable. They have to learn a lot they must believe that they can make a good professionals. Yes. You know, we lack professionals nowadays. Everyone is questioning our profession, whether we really are in the profession or sometimes we regret that we are in there. We've been there as a last resort. We have not managed to secure a job somewhere else. So the challenge now is how to make our profession respected by the society. But it has some sort of, many people are questioning our profession. Maybe we are lazy, we are not educated, we don't behave like professionals. So the challenge now is to build self-esteem and to have a motivation, people to learn, to learn new skills. to be aware of what is happening in the world. Unfortunately, as he says, my colleague here, that those days people were not having degrees. But if you test their knowledge,
yes.
general knowledge,
yes.
When I was in class 6, I could name all the all the all these headquarters of the countries in the Latin America, in Africa, anywhere. These days, you can't do it. A person finished university, but his or her general knowledge is very, very poor. And you can't be journalist if you have very rich knowledge. You have knowledge, and then you have to write. Okay. And that cannot be just, you can't be a professional if you don't read, if you don't train yourself. Yeah. That should be a motivation.
So it's very important. Continuous reading, updating, improving your skills, your knowledge of world affairs, your own country affairs. That makes you a journalist.
Yes, exactly.
And responsibility as well, and ethical conduct as a journalist.
And to be ready to be criticized.
To be ready to be criticized. You are very right. You just don't put your words into people's mouth in terms of writing. When they didn't say this, you put it on them. Well, my gentlemen, my panelists, I'm very grateful. It's a pity finally we're winding up, but Dr. Yarioba has not appeared for one reason or another. He would have helped us a great deal, as Uli says. Well, we couldn't do anything about that. Thank you very much for your presentation, and at least we have touched on the question of freedom of the media, of the press in this country, and you raise a number of issues which for journalists themselves to be recognized, to be respected in the profession as the fourth estate, and to work reasonably. Even the question of security, we didn't touch this. I mean, our journalists were protected these days. Can they work anywhere they want? Sometimes they behave in a way that they cannot be protected. They present themselves in a situation where they just can't defend their presence around there. Of course, we say a journalist's role is to report, and he has to be everywhere. He shouldn't have a limitation. You can't go here, you can't do this. So let us accept there is freedom of the press, not partially, as Freedom House says, but the profession and stakeholders have to do more than what they are doing now to maintain this respect. Peter, maybe go back to the old good days, and we can say, well, the media now is like in those days when we were under one-party system. And today is a multi-party democracy, so you could expect that the media will operate freely, ethically, objectively, very well. And responsible. So thank you very much, my panelists. Viewers, you heard the views of my panelists here. The World Press Conference Day held in Mwanza recently brought together media stakeholders, and they took the opportunity to express their concerns on a number of issues relevant to their profession. And Salim was also there, and he made a presentation. Fundamentally, they complained that the freedom of the press is not that free anymore, and cited several restrictive laws like the Cybercrime Act 2015 and the Media Services Act of 2016. So, is the fourth estate no longer comfortable and indeed recognized in Tanzania because of threats against journalists and these acts? Well, you heard from my panelists here now. Freedom of press is there. Journalists should do more. I mean, these complaints were in the report, for example, the Freedom House 2016, which ranks Tanzania as partly free, but it's not partly free, it's actually free, with a score of 58 points, a decline of 3 points from the previous rank. But as Saidi said, where he questions how they reach their conclusion with this ranking, and what is the objective here. The World Without Borders report also found that Tanzania has slipped 12 places in freedom of the press due to similar reasons and the recorded threat against journalists. So the incidences which have happened should not be the main reason why we should question this. But as I said, some of these answers need a response from the profession itself. Is there through freedom of the press in Tanzania, or is press freedom worsening? Well, you got the answers here. The answer is no. Or maybe when these reports come up in 2015, the situation will be different. Now, I think this is all we have for you today. Until next Sunday at the same time, which is 20 hours, and on Thursday for the repeat program. On behalf of my panel, Said Salim, Uli Mambulkutu, Said Amea, and my TBC Television Center crew, thank you, viewers, and goodbye.